Kota, I'm Elsie. Welcome to the Roundtable podcast. We've created the space for Ni Vanuatu women to speak freely on issues affecting us today. Let's navigate life in the islands together. Join me as I speak to a new guest every episode and ask the questions you've always wanted to ask. Ale, Yumistorian. This project is made possible with the support of the We Rise Coalition and PACMAS. On this episode, we're going to be talking about quite a sensitive topic. We will be exploring the perception of rape and victim blaming in Vanuatu. Now, this conversation may be triggering for some people, so I am encouraging you, if you feel like listening to this episode may bring up something or may bring up past experiences, then please, I highly suggest that you stop listening. But with me today to talk about this topic and explore more on this topic, particularly in Vanuatu, I have Polly Walker Dorras. Hi, Polly. Thank you for joining me today. Polly Walker, for those of you who might not know, she is the Senior Community and Gender Lead for the Vanuatu Australia Police and Justice Program, where she supports the police and justice agencies to develop and deliver community engagement initiatives around the law, particularly those that relate to domestic and sexual violence. So, Polly, before we go into all of the questions that I have today, I just want to bring up this article that I found from the Daily Post from 2021, where, the headline is Collecting, Analyzing, and Understanding Gender-Based Violence Data. So it was an opportunity for all of the women-led organizations that look and work to help prevent violence against women and girls. And they had in this article, according to the Vanuatu National Survey, Vanuatu has one of the highest recorded rates, with 60% of women aged 15 to 49 experiencing physical and or sexual violence, 68% experiencing emotional violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So these are some of the statistics. And I wanted to get your professional opinion. With these statistics, I want to know, how many, in your opinion again, your professional opinion, how many of these women report these cases of violence, in particular the physical and sexual violence cases?
Okay, so that's quite a difficult question to answer because we don't actually know how many cases don't get reported. I mean, we only collect data from people who come to police or people who go to an institution like the Vanuatu Women's Centre. But as we know, in Vanuatu, many disputes are solved informally through the system of family heads or chiefs. So by depend, suppose we one person, hemi report, by you misave talem data lo this year we come out lo one service we hemi report ikolo hembe. Most lol cases lo believe me, most lol cases only never kasem one formal service. Most lol cases you may handle them inside lo family, or sometime you may pass them ikolo chief. Yeah.
And for those of you who may not know how it works here in Vanuatu, when we're polihemitalem, it's through the custom reconciliation part. And I understand as well, and I've heard that, that's the main go-to for a lot of women, especially the women living in communities. And so with the way things are going today, I understand there are a lot of different NGOs, maybe government programs that have projects to help highlight the importance of preventing violence against women and girls. Do you think with the previous statistic that I mentioned earlier that the number will increase or will it decrease? Just thinking about all the information that's currently being put out there.
I think usually, what you would see is as people become more aware of what the law is and the fact that they are able to report things, you'll see a spike because all the cases that we didn't know about are suddenly coming forward. So what you should see is a steady increase in reports. That doesn't mean, though, that there's more rape than there used to be or there's more violence than there used to be. It just means that more people have the information and are able to come forward. What you would hope to see over time with lots and lots of awareness, but not just awareness, service provision and effective responses to those reports, you would hope to see behaviour change and long-term offences. But that is huge change that takes generations and you know, I don't think there's a country in the world that has succeeded in eliminating violence against women, unfortunately.
Now, for the legal perspective, again, for those of you who may not know, Polly has a background in law. You studied in Australia and worked in Australia for 10 years. And for the legislation here in Vanuatu, I understand that in the penal code, it has been amended from it being rape to now sexual intercourse without consent. I just want to understand why this was amended, this particular, why isn't the court recognizing it as rape? Why are they now recognizing it as sexual intercourse without consent?
Okay, I just want to preface this with saying that I'm not a criminal lawyer. I do a lot of work now with the legislation around domestic and sexual violences, but when I practiced, I wasn't practicing as a criminal lawyer. My field of law was employment. But having said that, I think in the language changes, it's actually been about broadening what can be recognized by a court as what we would say rape. When you hear that word rape, traditionally, many of us picture a man using a lot of force to I hope I don't offend anyone, but to penetrate a woman with his penis. I mean, that is the traditional thing that comes to mind when you think about rape. And it's usually, a very scary situation where someone is like using a lot of physical force to do that. But rape can occur in a much broader spectrum of behaviors than just that. And so by using the word sexual intercourse, those words, we can provide a definition that goes beyond just a man penetrating a woman, but can involve use of objects and can involve other parts of the body being, violated. So it's quite a technical kind of legal perspective, but really it's about providing for the full range of behavior that constitutes, the violation of someone's body. And time yimitalem without consent, yumi se inogat agreement. So nara something too, yumi se plan the time, you meeting about rape, you meeting about force. But really what it is it's activity without the agreement of the other person. Hemi no agriblo you make him fascinia. And it got full up situation where might inogat agreement, where imo bitim just eme where hemi fight them him. Sometimes force happens in other ways. Yes.
True. So thank you for explaining that. I think for me, I was a little confused, I guess, because I didn't really have that experience with working in the legal sector in Vanuatu. And so for me, I was a little, taken aback with, why aren't they just using the word rape? Because it's rape. But with that explanation, I understand that now. And it wasn't, people weren't like misinterpreting it or anything. It was just so that everything was laid out. And for when cases came up, it was covered more. And you mentioned that rape isn't just a man penetrating his penis. So rape isn't, like you mentioned, it isn't just a man penetrating his penis into a woman's vagina, but it can also be an object. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And now that's, stated in the penal code, that rape or sexual intercourse without consent can also happen with objects. And so with that, that perception of maybe not a lot of people know this, how do you think people maybe in the community or just around Port Vila interpret rape, and why? Is there some misinformation, or are we not, really defining what rape is, especially according to our legislation?
Sure. I think it's a common understanding, everyone, and we can all sympathize or empathize with that idea of, the stranger forcing a woman to have sex she's going to have in a very violent, imagery type way. And that's one that is, I think, the one that the community, Pamitali Muslim said, they accept that it's been a rape, it's been a violation of this person. But I think time you talk about all broader ranges, situations where rape is ever happen, like particularly, for example, if a woman is drunk and passes out and she's taken advantage of and violated, we don't often think of that as rape. We think of that as her fault because she was drunk and she fell asleep. Or if it's, for example, one of the most common places that rape happens, very sadly, is in the home. It is often the person who rapes the victim is a family member or a close friend or someone who they know very well. And that, I think, we find a lot harder to sympathize with and to understand, because it feels so, there's lots of reasons why, but I think for many people that just is hard to accept is the reality of what is happening in people's homes. And so we find ways of blaming the woman who the rape has happened to, so that we can find a reason for why this horrible thing happened. That is an easy explanation. Well, she must have done something wrong. So I think a lot of the time when the community talks about rape, we think a lot about what did she do to deserve that? And that's often first question that people ask. Oh, I think hemi stawa about him one lo night, or oh, I think hemi wrong, or I think hemi after remanya namo alena ya hemi stap kiaman. There's a lot of those kinds of things that we will say about rape, and there's lots of we don't talk about in our community at all, unfortunately, the rape that happens to men and boys, which does happen, but we find it very hard to talk about and acknowledge, and it may not be the large proportion of cases, but it certainly does happen. So I think there's lots of ways the community, and it's for lots of different reasons, for lack of education and awareness, but to gender beliefs in our society about gender and the position of men and women in society, that has a huge impact on how we perceive all sorts of interactions between men and women, but especially sexual interactions and rape. Time where you may think about something or some sex in a marriage situation, often because of the bride price, there is a belief that man hemi pay woman anytime hemi want them sex, hemi got right got sex. And so we don't think of a husband raping his wife, we just think that that's what she has to give him because that's what he's paid for on one side. So hemi got full up different thing come inside. Sorry, I hope I'm probably not being very clear there.
No, that's clear, and that's like hemi true. Like full up people only believe says the bride price time one man hemi make him every something woman must follow him no more, and it hurts to see when the woman does bring up something that's happened, if she's been forced by her husband to have sex, and the immediate reaction from most family members will be, but that's fine. Hemi man blue. Mivla saka money finish. That's your issue now. And so that for me, it hurts to see that yes, we're not supporting or trying to support these women who go through these different issues.
That's right. And there's a lot of shame attached to rape. So plan the time where one person hemi experience him rape, the level of already she's been violated and gone through this horrific traumatic event, but then she's also made to feel ashamed and responsible for what happened to her, which adds to the trauma that she's gone through. And it also makes it a lot harder to speak out. I mean, even local chabli mi sex hemi no one something where you start talk about really. And that's even consensual sex we don't talk about. Yumi talem se hemi tabu and hemi want something where yumi no want them talk about. And then time you putum se rape, emi come one even more hard something lo talk about. And often, if someone is raped in the community, you have the whispers and the gossip. Oh, Geliana wali rape him last time, and oh, but hemi never sabe find him one man by one them him now from only spoil him finish. It's those sorts of, she's been spoiled, she's been tarnished. Instead of lifting her up and saying, you've been through this awful thing and we're going to make things better for you now, we heap on a layer of shame that makes it even harder for people to speak about what they've gone through.
Exactly. And there's a lot of blaming, like you've mentioned. People always find bali find a way plotane ko pak lokela. Plotala say, well, what were you wearing, for instance? And I think that comes up a lot. And so I just want to hear, your thoughts as well when it comes to people blaming what the survivor was wearing. I think another thing as well is, what time of the day was she, walking either in the community or around town? Like, was it late at night? Well, if it was late at night, she should have been at home. What was she doing? And so there are all these different ways and reasons that people try to put the blame back on the girl. And so, yes, what do you think when people start to blame, but particularly when they try and blame it on what the girl was wearing?
Yeah, great. Thank you. One very, very common thing suppose you are one close to him is show out potibly. You start attract them I blol man and then by only want them rape you. And I find that belief is problematic on so many levels. I mean, first something hemi not even through from plante rape happen, time woman you wear island dress, time woman you wear long skirt, time woman you wear trousers, even when women only conform lo every something when money ask him lolgata you dress up with them good for a woman or sem, they can still be raped. Women are raped wearing all sorts of different things. And so I would say rape has nothing to do with dressing up. But I think the other thing that's really dangerous about this idea of dressing up is what we're effectively saying is olman oli nogat control. Olman bali look one woman dress up oseme by oli olseme oli one rape him. Like that is putting men at such a base level. It's saying that men can't control their feelings. Men are basically like animalistic. I mean, if I'm a man, I wouldn't want people to think that I have absolutely no ability to control my normal human desires. And me things are really, really important. You me make him all people only thinking deep about this one. From him, like him, you and I can see a person walk past and think, wow, they're attractive, but we don't want to take that step to violate them in a really awful, awful way. And I think we have to really challenge those ideas about dressing up by lead color rape. Full up all community blue yumi. Only block a woman blow no wearem trousers, blow no wearem short skirt, and still rape is stuck head lol community. Yeah. Rape happens to small children. Don't tell me that rape of a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old has anything to do with what that child is wearing. Rape happens to, like I said, most rapes only happen inside lo own home blow victim, and hemi usually one man where hemi save with him. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, hemi one family member. And it may not have any something to do with them close to a victim hemi werem. And you mi save finis a stampa cause of violence against a small woman, hemi power more control. And it's when, people in society who have power want to use that power to abuse and violate somebody else. And unfortunately, in our society, men have a lot more power than women. And men are taught from a very early age that sex is your right and you can demand it. And a woman who, violates our moral beliefs is someone who you're allowed to do bad things to and you won't be held responsible. So one nara something about victim blaming or sem hemi one way blow you me find them one easy answer. Also suppose hemi dress up. And also, unfortunately, a lot of women can blame other women. It's not just men who engage in victim blaming. And I think it's about saying, it's about kind of trying to believe that society is fair so that nothing bad will happen to you if you're a good person. So if I dress up properly, if I am really obedient and good, I will never have anything bad happen to me. So then if something bad does happen to someone we know, we start to find ways to hold them responsible so that we can still believe that if I'm a good moral person, nothing bad will happen to me. And it's kind of like trying to find this very easy answer for why this thing happened, rather than having to think about actually these are really, really, core beliefs at the root of our society that maybe we need to challenge, which is very hard to do. Everyone more look big one inside lo yumi one, and our own judgments, the way we judge other people, it requires a lot more self-reflection than being able to say, oh no, she did something wrong, that's why that happened to her.
Yeah, I think that's brought up a lot for me just listening to it. I hope that other women will be able, and hopefully men will be able to relate at how frustrating it is when people blame what the victim was wearing, and all of the other reasons that people try and find the easy answer to put it back on the victim. Also feel like a lot of people will focus on the incident itself, will focus on, again, blaming the victim, but then they also forget the damage and the trauma that is now on the survivor, particularly like the emotional and mental well-being of the survivor. So with that being said, I do understand, and I'm very certain that a lot of people know that Vanuatu Women's Center is the go-to service that women can go to, any survivor that can go to if they need help or support. But are there any other current services that we have in Vanuatu that can help survivors, or is this something that we are lacking?
Thanks. That's an excellent question. And as you've rightly pointed out, Osem, the trauma of sexual violence is one that can last a lifetime, and something where plantelo yumi no start recognizing or yumi no start talk about mental health in general. Hemi no one conversation where hemi common lo country. So I think often we expect people to just get on with their lives even when they've been through really awful things like this. But there are definitely services around. I mean, one service that I think is often, forgotten about is the health service, because, sexual violence can cause STDs. It can cause someone to become pregnant when they don't want to be. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you access a clinic within 72 hours of having been raped, you can be provided with medication to prevent STIs and to prevent an unwanted pregnancy. So, one of the most critical things for a person who's been raped is to get to a medical center to have those medications administered. And then if the survivor does want to report it to police, obviously one clinic Bahemisave give him one medical report, where Bahemisave kamul sem one evidence where poli putum lo court lo provum case. But something lo country blimi hemi geography hemi very hard. So plante lo health centers might only nokat all same service everyone, and especially time you go out more rural, more remote, one where you save kasem hemi no sema kosem one where you save kasem los central areas. So hemi one big full of challenge for service providers. But you make got close up every island or every village, you got one health center, one clinic close up. Some might probably got some medicine, some might got. But yes, so health services are one, and of course there's the government health clinics, but also there's the clinics like the Family Health Association, where only got all clinics where only savemekem all same something, all government clinic, and you got clinic lo campusum head down lo one small bag lo Tagabay and two lo Luganville. So there's the health service aspect. Then there's the counselling. So you rightly mentioned Vanuatu Women's Center as one incredible service blo all woman mol girl and boys who are under 18. So it's not, we have people often think of it as just women, but young boys are also able to access all the services And that's counselling, that's legal advice, that's referrals to other justice agencies like the police. And importantly, all of Vanuatu Women's Centre's services are free. And suppose you not money, blokasem office plulgata, only got one free call number 161. And you save ask him support, blo one finance, blokasem office. Suppose you need him help, blo transport fund. So hemi really one incredible service where hemi start blo help him all people wali go through lol rapis fasinol sema. We do have through our Vila Central Hospital, one service we call a mind care unit. Olgeta oli mekem some counselling, especially lo side blo really, if you're going through severe mental health issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder, or you start facing all memory blo one way happen, you start come back every time, and you start got all trouble blo you're triggered by certain places or things, or you're just not feeling like you're coping very well mentally. Obviously mind care unit hemi one place where you got all mental health nurse, and we only sabe make them counselling with them and giving you some strategies how blo cope with them when you stop experiencing. Back again, geographical challenge hemi big one. So service hemi very centralized lo all hospital lo villa with them lo Luganville. Service provision lo Vanuatu hemi very challenging from hemi got 82 islands. Roti no good, someplace boat no mo ikasem. It's incredibly expensive for lots of people and for service providers too. So that is an ongoing challenge. There are also services through the police, of course, where supposed you want them make one criminal report, whereby you end up lo court. Then, of course, you make got lo plante places by you got family protection unit where you deal with them all sexual offences where happen inside lo family as well as domestic violence. And then you got serious crimes investigations where only call them on unit CID, and then you got some places only got all morality unit. So service blo police emi kasem every island, but back again, some islands have more police officers than others, and the police are working very hard to improve the reach of policing services. So those would be probably the main services that are available. There are lots of NGOs that are out there doing awareness work, and some doing some work around counselling support and things like that. But in terms of formal service provision, that's what we have at the moment. I think there's obviously a lot more that could be there, particularly in that counselling space. But as I said, the challenges are significant. There aren't a lot of resources, and there has been some incredible work that's happened to really extend the reach of services across the country.
Thank you, Polly. That was more information. I think I only really understood that Vanuatu Women's Centre did provide counselling, that there was the mind care clinic for any post-traumatic stress. Do they have to, would the survivor have to openly tell them that they've been raped and that they would like this particular medication, or can they just ask for that medication?
Don't work in the health space, so I'm not sure if there's any sort of particular protocol. I mean, my understanding of how it should work is that it shouldn't be something where you'd have to disclose, that you were raped. It would be that you would have to state that you had had unprotected sex within the last 72 hours. But again, I don't work in health, so I probably would leave that to yes.
Leave it to them to explain. That's fine. But thank you so much. That was a lot of information, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who don't know that these are the services that we have. Taking note again that these services will be able to provide everything that you mentioned, specifically in Port Vila and Luganville. It will depend across our islands here in Vanuatu.
I should add, of course, as in the community, we have incredible people who work to support community members who experience awful things. So there are some chiefs and some pastors and community leaders who have been excellent advocates to help their people get justice services, get them to hospitals, get them to health centres. In Santo, there's a program that I've been working with called the Authorised Person Program, and those are community members who are appointed to issue temporary protection orders in situations of family violence. But they also make referrals and for more serious cases, and they work very closely with community leaders as well. And I think that's also one of the strengths of our community too, is that there are often leaders who will show a lot of initiative in helping people access services that they may not otherwise be able to access, and in helping to respond to some of these things that happen.
Yeah, thank you. Before we wrap this episode up, I just wanted to also get your thoughts on, I think this is my personal observation. A lot of times when another woman will open up, usually to another woman, that maybe they've been raped or that they have experienced some sort of violence from their partner, the immediate response, particularly for those living in town, is we'll go and report it to the police, go to Vanuatu Women's Centre. What are you doing? And I just wanted to get your thoughts. Is this, something that you encourage in your professional opinion as well? Is this something that people should be encouraging, like go straight to the police? I feel like maybe with all the information and awareness going around as well, people, again, in town, this is my observation in town, people will automatically think that, okay, the police are there to help in these situations.
I think everything in terms of what a person does in response to something like sexual violence or family violence, it's their decision, and their decision needs to be respected. And sometimes that won't be what we think would be best for them. I mean, obviously, being someone who works in the law, I strongly believe that, the more reports that happen, the better, because then we get more of a sense as a community of what is happening in our society, and we understand that these are issues we need to then address and put more resources into.
Thank you so much, Polly, for joining me on today's episode. I know that this topic can be very sensitive to talk about, but guys, it's necessary. These are the kinds of conversations we need to have in order to shift the perspective, shift the narrative of finding the easy answer, which is blaming the victim. We need to bring focus on the perpetrator. Violating someone, like Polly said, is against the law, but it's also morally wrong. We need to realize that it's not the survivor's fault. It's never the survivor's fault. And we need to encourage and support the survivor to go to these services we have available, while also understanding that at the end of the day, it is up to the survivor whether they want this support or not. If you or anyone you know is a survivor and needs support, please, please, please reach out to the services we have available, such as the Vanuatu Women's Centre. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Sister Vanuatu, and our website, sister.com.vu. This is Elsie from The Roundtable. If you want to hear more from The Roundtable podcast, make sure to tune in to the next episode.